All right, good day, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Live the Fuel show. As always, we are streaming live over the Facebook Life, the Facebook world, and so much more in the social media space. But this evening, on a fine Monday evening on May 11th, I like the timestamp nowadays because this may not air for a month from now, but we're already live on the Facebook world. We're hanging out, and we're going to be talking a lot about, well, definitely biking, because that's what triggered tonight's podcast, the cycling life, which I'm a huge advocate for. But obviously also some CrossFit, some functional fitness, since CrossFit is a brand of functional fitness, and maybe some swimming too, which I suck at, and I have no problem admitting to. But the gentleman joining me tonight knows about all these things and more because he joins us. That's right. This is Lou Williams from CrossFit Apex, based right here in Pennsylvania. And I'm bringing him on the show now because he ended up messaging me about bike inquiries for bike shopping. And anybody who follows me on social media knows me, I'm a bit of a geek. So without further ado, Lou, welcome to the show, sir.
Well, thanks for having me, Scott. Nice to talk to you tonight on a Monday.
Right.
Congratulations on all the positive things. Yeah, congrats on all the positive things you got going on with the podcast and having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
But happy to talk about all those things and more.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited because I will admit, I have no problem telling people this. I let my CFL1 expire this year. One, because I've been around the fitness space for a long time. I've helped people with weight loss, and obviously from the nutritional coaching space, I've been over the years, I've been a spinning instructor from the spinning life. I've done personal training. Then the CrossFit thing exploded, and I was a wildland firefighter out west for a few years, which is how I found CrossFit, and then became so much in love with it, I ended up getting my CFL1, and then was doing some training back here in the Lehigh Valley. In Bethlehem and Allentown. And then, 5 years go by and I'm like, this was, my professional fitness roles. I mean, I was also a USSA ski race coach in the Poconos at Camelback for 11 years. So I've been around the block. I was like, do I want to spend another $1,000 to renew that cert? Like, no, actually, because I'm not actually training as much as I used to. So I let it expire. But I love the education from it, and I'm still passionate about it because clearly I built my own little CrossFit space in the garage.
Sure.
So, but there's great facilities like what you work with CrossFit Apex. And how long you been with them, by the way?
So actually, we probably have similar time domains here, Scott. My level 1 was set to expire this past fall, and I did end up paying $1,000 and getting my L2, which was important to my everyday workspace, both with swimming and with CrossFit. But so I started in 2013, so we're going on 8 full years. Took me a year or two to get my level 1, 5 years through that, coaching extensively at the CrossFit gym, and then just got my level 2. So
nice.
I guess about 8 years in the CrossFit space, but I've been a swimming coach and in the fitness world, similar to you, in some other areas for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's interesting how, and that's why I was excited to catch up with you. That's why I said, hey man, we're going to talk about bikes anyway. So I was like, why don't you just come on the show? Because then we're at least doing something productive that maybe other people might actually learn from. And
yeah, and we've crossed paths a couple of times here. We're not too far from you in the Allentown area. I am 20 miles south, down 476. So yep. I know we've crossed paths at competitions in the past, and certainly have some mutual friends in that space. So.
Well, and I got my cert down that way because I don't know if it's still that way to this day, but there was really within an hour to hour and a half drive time, there was only 2 facilities that you could get your CFL1 at. You had to go to Jersey, or you went down by King of Prussia,
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So King of Prussia, obviously great facility. Amy does a great job there. There were 3 gyms in our general vicinity that just had their 10-year anniversary and now 12-year anniversary. So 2 years ago, CrossFit Generations, which have been to SummerSlam, which is a big summer competition. King of Prussia and Apex got together for a 10-year anniversary party down at KOP. But
nice.
Definitely KOP has been kind of the central location for a lot of that training going on in the last couple of years.
Well, it's funny because I actually originally when I went for my CFL1, I did it up in North Jersey in Morristown, because it's actually, they actually had 2 business names. They were actually Gorilla Fitness, I think, and then there's the CrossFit name of it, whatever that was. But it was funny because it's 2 facilities in the same building that are owned by the same owners, and then right in the middle was like an art gallery because they couldn't get access to all the space. But they had a non-CrossFit branded space and then the CrossFit branded space. Same owners, doesn't really matter. And they were actually a very interesting business model because the owners also owned other facilities in other towns. So if you joined their facility, you gained access to other facilities as a paid member, kind of like the traditional gym world, like Gold's gyms and stuff like that, right?
Reciprocity across all of their different locations.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, that was the first time I ever seen that.
Yeah, I wonder how long it took that CrossFit / regular gym to push out that art space in the middle in between.
It's still there. I think the art gallery owns the building and they're just leasing it. So in the end, it's what the art gallery wants, what the art gallery gets. But yeah, anyway, so I went there first and didn't pass it because probably like you, when we were first starting off, we think we know everything and we don't. And then I went back and then recertified again and then obviously got approved. And that was probably, obviously, this was the fall when I was due, so over 5 years ago. So, but I started practicing and learning CrossFit when I was firefighting out west. So that was 2010, 2011. So now that's over 10 years now that I've been doing it. So, yeah. But at
least aware of what's going on in the CrossFit world.
Yeah, I still follow everything. So shout out to my buddy Rob Eschbach of F13 Performance, formerly known as Esquire CrossFit. So he's one of these brave fitness facilities that said, wait a minute. So last year, on his 5-year anniversary, he decided to say, you know what? And I'm not trying to bash CrossFit, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't get any entrepreneurial support. They provide a great platform from certifications of coaches and trainers, et cetera, yada, yada, yada. But he's like, he has one of the most successful facilities in the greater Lehigh Valley area. He actually has one of the peak billables, so he bills more than most people. So, and he has a huge membership base. So he's like, what do I really need this for? He's like, do I take a huge risk and try and exist on my own? And he basically had a pair, so to speak, and went for it. And so now he's known as F13 Performance instead of SYR CrossFit because you got to pay for the licensing. This is business 101. You're paying for the rights to the name of CrossFit. But part of the reason why he wanted to do that, though, was he wanted to introduce much more personalized programming versus just group fitness. And that was one of his goals for a while anyway, was some people thrive on the group, like my wife, she's a member there. She thrives on the classic group fitness component that CrossFit does exude. And like right now, she's itching because
she's in the garage, right?
We're in the garage. Like she's out there right now. I just came in from the garage, and I'm always looking to upgrade it, it gives me a great project to work on. But there's still that psychological benefit of being around other athletes working out together, or non-athletes.
100%. 100%.
So, I mean, do you guys see the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, as a team sport athlete growing up, I mean, I personally can say that team dynamic and the group dynamic, even from a coaching standpoint, being in front of a group of people as opposed to a one-on-one is better for me personally. I certainly understand the business decision of carrying the CrossFit name or not and what that means for a business. But we certainly value that CrossFit name a lot. And the history of the Apex business goes back to the beginning of CrossFit in the area. So certainly
you guys are definitely one of the founders of Eastern Pennsylvania, so to speak. I mean, the only one older than you guys, I think, is the old CrossFit 610, if you remember that name.
I do not remember that name, but yeah, we definitely value that and the time and the space. And I feel very thankful and blessed to be able to work with Tanya, the owner, and her husband, Josh and Keith, the owners of that business. Tanya, who won the games in 2009 and is just a terrific coach and spokesperson for that methodology and the group fitness lifestyle. So definitely blessed to be a part of their organization.
The one thing I appreciated was I was worried that there's a lot of CrossFit fan members of Rob's, facility. And I was like, wait, can people still do the games every year and compete? And he said, oh yeah, actually CrossFit doesn't have a problem with that. And I never even realized it until he went and did it. I was like, oh, so non-CrossFit branded facilities that are focused on functional fitness and follow all the same protocols and training, et cetera, can still enter athletes into that competition. Sure. I never even realized it. I was like, oh, well then more power to you then. You can still be happy. So
what does your daily workout look like these days? Are you still doing CrossFit? I've been following the stuff on the garage. It looks awesome. We're all like making our own garage gyms now. So the tech guy, the nerd that you are, is
the garage project started a long time ago. When I met my wife, because we've been married now 1 year as of St. Patrick's Day. And
congratulations. That's relatively new, right?
Very new. Yeah, right. I'm the guy who said I would never get married too, by the way, former tough guy firefighter. Like I don't need love. Yeah. And then you realize that, embracing vulnerability and actually allowing somebody into your, secret life is actually more growth oriented than you realize. So
For sure.
It takes a special woman because she's got a lot of patience.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I met her, she was just buying this. It was her great grandmother's house, and their family's construction company was founded here. But my wife is a veterinarian doctor, so she doesn't follow in those footsteps. But I walk out back behind the house when we were dating, and I'm like, what is this giant building? And she's like, oh, well, this is my garage. Came with the house. I was like, this has got to be like 3,000 square feet. Yeah. And I walk out there, and it's just full of like 30 to 40 years of just stuff from every other job site, every church they fixed up or built, or school that they worked on, or fire department that they built or remodeled, the old generation of a business. And I was like, can I start working on this? So it took like 3 years to gut the space, little by little, emptying it out. And then I welcomed in a friend of a friend who needed a place to store nice antique cars. So I gave him a section of the space. So it's been and that's why I eventually created its own hashtag called This Old Garage. So
Old Garage. I love it.
I have a folder on remember when we were kids, remember the old show, This Old House? It was like,
for sure, yeah.
What was that old guy's name? There's a bearded guy.
Bob Vila.
Boom, there you go. Bob, yeah. So like this, so I was like, oh man. Well, the best part is the house was built in 1910. So technically I have this old house and this old garage. It is
an old garage. Yeah. Well, it looks great in there. What are you doing for fitness right now? Like what is your best piece of equipment that you have on there that your go-to that you're using every day?
I'm a big kettlebell guy.
Okay.
So a good friend of mine, she's from New Jersey. She's actually a world champion in the kettlebell sport. Like I didn't even realize. Here's the funny thing. Like one of my side hustles from years ago that I still have to this day is I have a side business in the isogenics nutrition world, right? So I met her because she was one of the elite athletes that was also promoting the nutrition, supplements, stuff like that. And then I found out she's in Jersey. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go meet this woman. And then I find out that she's like a world champion. Like she's won kettlebell championships around the world. And I'm like, that's a thing? Because I'm the CrossFit guy. Yeah. She's the kettlebell girl. And I'm like, oh, like her name is Valerie Paulowski. And so she's a masters champion around the world, still competes to this day, but she trains other athletes. But I was used to the traditional American kettlebell where all the kettlebells are different sizes. And then I step into her gym in New Jersey and every kettlebell is the exact same size, just different colors. And I was like, what is this? And she's like, well, that's the proper kettlebell sport. Uniformity across the equipment. The difference is how the bell was forged, and you flip it over, and it's a hollow hole, and you look up in there, and it's all wide open. And I'm like, I didn't know this technology exists, so I geeked out. And I was like, okay, well, I'm all about CrossFit.
The different weights are similar. They're all the same size, so it's consistent in whatever move you're doing, but they vary.
Because kettlebells were, I don't know if it was officially founded by the Russians, but we all know about the Russian swing versus the American swing in the kettlebell sport. Yeah. And she's like, oh, there's much more than that. There's, just like in Olympic lifting, right? There is the clean, the jerk, the snatch, all those components. So I've been a geek about that. So now I own some set. I actually want to add more, but I have a set of bells that I got from her because I actually can do like double kettlebell, clean, jerks, all that. I'm like, I didn't know that existed because in the CrossFit space, I learned Olympic lifting with a barbell. I didn't know that there's the same movements available in the kettlebell space. Sure. So to this day, I'm still a geek about that because I have like, do you guys use the horse stall mats in your facility? The 3/4 inch rubber mats. So I have 12 rubber mats out there that I bought from Tractor Supply. We do have a squat rack that I rescued from Cloud9 CrossFit over in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. They downsized 2 years ago to a different facility, and he decided to go back to the purity of CrossFit. Got rid of the dedicated Olympic lifting spaces, all this. So he downsized his square footage to a new facility, and he was selling stuff. So I scored a box, scored a squat rack, and that's where the home gym sound got invented from. But I mean, we have a squat rack, we got barbell, we got bumper plates, we have a box. I did during this, you're asking what I'm doing, I lucked out. My friends who own CrossFit Adoration in Bethlehem, I got to borrow a rower. That was exciting because I'm like, dude, I don't want to give it back. Yep. and I borrowed some extra bumper plates from Rob at F13 as well, which I just returned to him. And so yeah, I mean, my wife and I spent a lot of time. I own a spinning bike. I also have a bike on a trainer. So obviously the whole point of tonight was biking. I love warming up on the bike, warming up on the rower now that I have a rower temporarily. Yeah. And then I've been really spending a lot of time with the kettlebells. And actually, honestly, a lot of classic body weight movements, stuff that people watching and hearing this show, even though I have the home gym, I'm not taking full advantage of the home gym because I still love, burpees, body weight training. I do have two Rogue P5 pull-up bar systems. So she's got one for her height, and I'm 6'4", so I had to have the tall guy one. So I ended up getting two of them. So we do pull-ups, we're doing burpees. I did borrow some wall balls, but she's not a fan of the wall ball. Whereas as a 6'4" guy, as you know, from CrossFit training, owning it. So, so yeah, I mean, honestly, I just started adding in because I had the extra plates from Rob. I did start adding in some more deadlifting again. And then I just placed a second order. Actually, I can't even order right now from Rogue because everything
backed up.
It's so backed up. It took 6 weeks to get the last delivery that I bought. So nowadays their website says notify me when available. So I asked them like, hey, I want to order another full set of bumper plates and some other stuff because I am working throughout this entire quarantine. So my income is not impinged at all yet, right? So I'm like, okay, why not? I'd rather stimulate the economy with great companies like Rogue, because Rogue is doing a lot of great things, man. They're making masks and everything else. So
yeah, agreed. I mean, when this all happened, I had a pre-existing gym with maybe 9 mats in one bay of my 2-car garage.
That's a great space. I was always 9 mats. I just added the other 3 like 6 months ago. So
it was 9 to start. It's a nice number square. But Apex did a great job of lending out some equipment, which I know a lot of gyms are doing, which is awesome for them to kind of give that to their members so we can program for them. So I got a couple of kettlebells from them. I love kettlebell work. I do swings every day. Rower is my go-to right now. We've been linked into the Concept 2 logbook. I don't know if you have that in the Erg Data app on your phone. I would highly recommend it. There's an app on your phone.
What's this? Hold on. I'm missing out on something?
You're gonna write it down real quick.
I've got the notepad right here. Hold on.
There you go.
Boom. I'm old school sometimes. I'm very techie, but there's a Concept 2 logbook.
Right. So if you go on the Concept 2 website, there's a button at the top. You can click logbook, create an account, and then you can get an app on your phone. It's called Erg Data, ERG Data. Yeah. And then the phone Bluetooth links right to the rower if you've got a PM5 monitor. It's one of the newer models. So you have to look at the model of your monitor, but I can sync my phone to the rower and I set it up for whatever distance I'm doing. Well, and then all that data goes right into my phone.
I did. The rower I borrowed, because you know how Concept 2s are great equipment, but sometimes the monitor devices fail out. So this is one of theirs that has the newer monitor on it. I made sure I grabbed that.
You should be able to do it.
Game, set, match.
So we just finished. So it tracks all of my meters, so I can tell you exactly how many I did last month, this month, for the year, for the season. Nice. And then they have periodic challenges. We just finished a 5-week-long. We had 8 guys on a boat crew, and each week was a different challenge. We finished, last week was a 2K row for time. There was a 30-minute row for max meters. But that really speaks to me as a swimming coach. It's a full body workout, definitely lungy. Yeah. If I can sit on the rower and do some interval work, that's great.
Remember the games years ago when they introduced the marathon row? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Because I did that years ago, and I was like, the biggest problem was like I'm an endurance sports guy. Like I'll run Spartan races. I've done marathons. Yeah. I do 100-mile bike rides. I mean, I have the mindset for it. But let me tell you, man, my sit bones were fried after that row. Because that plastic seat. Like I remember to this day, I remember rotating to right butt cheek and then left butt cheek throughout the row because I'm just trying to give it a break.
Well, we're getting ready for one. They've got a challenge right now that's marathon row. So we've been kind of preparing that with some longer distances, but the biggest challenge for me is not necessarily the lung capacity or the strength to pull that long. It's the staying comfortable, being comfortable. Yeah. Uncomfortable in that position of sitting on the rower.
Yeah, finding a way to be comfortable while you're uncomfortable is a true challenge.
Yes. But anyway, the rower has been my go-to these days, along with the other stuff. I got pull-up bar and squat rack and all that stuff. But again, I think it speaks to the body weight stuff. Everybody should be working on their engine right now because you can do burpees all day, any day, wherever. And there's a lot of
value. It's great for lung capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I'm programming for my swimmers, and I have to program for no equipment. So a lot of the times I'm testing and doing stuff. I want to see what I can do without anything that you can do in a 1 square horse stall mat space anyway. So
Well, it's funny because I had friends close to me that in the CrossFit space, they were all concerned about me when this whole Corona thing unleashed, because they were looking at obviously everybody who has possible lung issues. And for anybody who follows me online, because I have no problem sharing anything, I don't care. I'm completely transparent. Right before my wedding last year, I collapsed my lung, and I had to go in for into the hospital for 8 days.
Were you doing something aggressive? Was it a bike fall or skiing something or?
No, that's the best part. Like I am the adrenaline junkie guy. Like I literally tried proposing to my wife after a skydive, but they grounded our plane due to high winds that day, and I had to go and act on the moment, and then go down the road to a winery and surprise her there because of winds. So like sometimes we skydive every year. So I am that guy. And no, the funny thing was, apparently I had actually I injured myself officially doing CrossFit actually, and it's not CrossFit's fault, but I had injured myself over the holiday before the new year. So this was end of 18, end of 19. Yeah. Doing 12 days of Christmas. Right, no matter which version you do, it's a very long workout.
Very challenging. Yep.
And a lot of people, even though me being a CFL1 and knowing better, I had allowed some of my form to become lethargic, and that opens you up to a possible injury, right? Because form and technique come first. Doesn't matter how much weight you're throwing around. Yeah. You know this. Yeah. And then I remember one of the movements was I think it was shoulder to overhead.
Sure.
And I think I had just arched, maybe overarched or something, and came down, and I had displaced a rib in my back. And I knew exactly what it was because I fell off a cliff firefighting years ago out west, and I injured the same thing. And my firefighting buddies back then called me a little, a wuss, because I was like, I couldn't breathe right and I couldn't hike right. And
breathing's overrated.
Right? And it's like, oh yeah, you suck it up. And I'm like, I'm literally for days so anyway, long story short, out west, once I had days off, so if I had to deal with that injury for 4 days of firefighting, I got 1 rest day, and then went back to hiking and just not being able to breathe really well. And then went to a chiropractor, and she figured out that the cartilage had gotten displaced, and she just realigned it, and boom, my intercostals were finally able to inflate and do their normal thing. So apparently that is a known concern for tall, lean athletes that I never knew about. So fast forward all these years later, like literally 8-9 years later, I do the same injury, different problem, but I had displaced it again. I knew exactly what I felt it. I'm like, I know what this is, but it was the holiday. The chiropractor was closed for the holiday, and I only trust my doctor. I'm like, you know what? It's fine. I went and did cryotherapy. I was doing my bone broth anti-inflammatory practices, all these things. I know more nowadays. Didn't matter until I can get that thing popped and put back where it belongs. It didn't matter. So long story short, I thought I was fine, but the damage was already done. Apparently, as a tall, lean athlete, if you cough aggressively over and over again, your diaphragm is slamming your lungs. You could traumatize your lung tissue, create a blister. The blister could then pop. If that blister pops, because there's air trapped in that blister, you can actually self-collapse your lung. And here's the best part. So after all that went down, a buddy of mine who was a police officer, his son is a swimmer, his son, 2 weeks after my surgery, jumps out of the pool after training and does the exact same injury. And I was like, wait, this is a thing?
Yeah. I had no idea. Was probably a tall, lean guy as well if he was a swimmer.
Tall, lean guy, probably he was 16 years of age.
Yeah.
Same thing, spontaneous pneumothorax, boom. I'm like, get out of here. Like, so what are the odds?
You had this previous breathing or lung issue, so your friends were a little worried about you when this happened, the coronavirus?
Because everybody was reading all the stats and blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh my God, well, you've got a prior lung injury, so you have a higher risk. I'm like, no, because that June, after the collapsed lung, hold on. So then we have a heli skiing wedding in Banff, Canada. Helicopters and skiing and blah, blah, blah. So I recovered in time to go do that on St. Patrick's Day week. And then in June, I attempted my first 100-mile mountain biking race, not road biking, mountain biking in the mountains outside of Penn State main campus, central Pennsylvania. So like, okay, clearly everything works. So everybody freaking out about me and my lungs. I'm like, dude, 4 months after my injury, I raced in a mountain bike race. like over 7,000 feet of climbing on a mountain bike.
Yeah, yeah.
I think my lung is good.
Should be all right. Should be all right.
So
Well,
I appreciate people caring, but I'm like, guys, like this is the lung concerns are around people who have impaired lungs. My
Yep.
lungs are not impaired. All right. Somebody who I've never smoked a cigarette in my life.
yeah,
Okay. So
we're working hard. Well, let's talk some bike stuff. I'm a
we'll talk
noob.
about biking. Yeah.
My 12-year-old son would call me a noob. And, I've been riding my mountain bike since I was 16 years old, and it's done its trick for getting around
Wait,
town.
your 12-year-old son was calling you out?
No, that's shocker.
Noob.
That's all he does. But we've been looking at different ways to be fit, and mountain biking and get outside and biking seems to be something that is available right now. I've got a bike, so we've been doing some mountain biking in the area.
And super beneficial. Super beneficial.
I always tell people I love to hike. We've done some Ragnar trail races. I love to be outside in the woods whenever my kids get rambunctious.
I've done Ragnar.
Did you? Which one did you do?
Arizona, where I used to fight for it. We did it right before the fire season. My fire buddies got together and we did the classic Ragnar, 12-man team, 24-hour
road race.
Yeah, you're running. Yeah, you're running on the road.
We did the trail version in New Jersey, and we did kind of an ultra version. Yeah, Ragnar trails. In the middle of the night on trails, headlamps, it's the best. I really enjoyed it. Camping.
I'm in. That's way better.
Well, we'll sign up for one.
I did have one of my legs was in the middle of the night going through the desert with a headlamp on. But it was, again, most of the running was on road. And I would much prefer in Mother Nature's glory, not on asphalt.
Yeah, it was one of the more rewarding, challenging things we've done. There's usually 8-person teams, but we did a 4-person team, the ultra version. So we each ran 30 miles apiece. It was 6 loops. There was like a 3, a 5, a 7-mile loop. And then you do each one of those twice, and it's a relay style, so you hand off to a teammate.
So it's really great. 4?
We did it with 4, the ultra version, but I
thought ultra was 6, right? Standard team is 12, ultra is 6, but that's the classic road race though. So maybe the trail is
different, but we did with 4. It was 120 miles. So anyway, nice. I love being outside. I always take my kids hiking. That's my go-to outdoor activity. And so the mountain bike seemed a logical next step. So we've been doing a little bit out at Lake Nakamixon, if you're familiar. Have you been out there to ride?
Oh, dude, the trails there for they finally opened up the trails there for mountain biking like 2 weeks ago. Maybe.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
Because that's a state-owned property. I know most of the trail builders down there because I maintain the trails here in Allentown at Jordan Creek single track with my other buddies, and that's county run here, but that's state run. So they got it's all the issue with they want to open those trails up right away is because the parking lot where the trailhead is for mountain biking is very small. So it's really hard.
Is it that Tower Road spot? The Tower Road parking lot?
So it's very hard to kind of support and promote social distancing when you're in a really tight parking lot.
Yeah.
But admittedly, I tell people all the time, I'm sorry, as a mountain biker and a racer, it's really hard to be less than 6 feet up on somebody's butt unless you want to crash. So
that rarely happens, right?
Let's pause on that. Like, okay, biking is a very healthy sport. It's great for lungs. It's great for legs. Amazing for endurance training. But if you just want to go out with your kids and just go mountain biking, it's also great in general. I'm a huge cycling advocate. So that's why I reached out to you. I was like, oh man, I'll guide you on some bikes that I can.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are confused about that. They're like, well, a lot of the parks are being overrun right now. Actually, I will say this. There are more people nowadays, right now, taking advantage of the park system that they always avoided. So I'm happy to see that, but I'm also unhappy because I'm like, I don't want to go into a park with 200 people in there when there's normally only like 10.
Yeah, I totally agree. We had some experience hiking wise, both at county and state parks, because we made the rounds a lot of the stuff down here. But, I've been running trails and hiking on these trails for years, and I've never seen parking lots more crowded, which is a paradox because it's great. I love that people are outside, and I'd much rather they be doing that than a lot of other things. But those spaces are spaces that are supposed to be open spaces. So it's definitely a paradox. But so interested in mountain biking a little bit. My son would like to get involved, and so I would like to get a new bike. Just looking for some advice, basics, what to look for, what not to look for, what I need, what I don't need.
Well, and I'm already prepared for you.
All right, you got some
So
screen
you were,
shares
oh,
ready to go?
absolutely. I mean, hold on real quick. We got to shout out to obviously CrossFit Apex. There you go. So CrossFit Apex,
Oh, yeah,
APEX, ladies
there's
and
the homepage.
gentlemen.com.
Lots of my friends there on the screen.
I love the fact that we were just talking about kettlebells earlier, and this is the main homepage. There's nothing like a
Doing
good
some
farmer's
carries
carry,
there.
right?
Farmer carries. That was our old facility, actually. We've moved since then, but
Yeah.
definitely missed that place.
Oh, I've not been down there since you guys moved facilities. How
Yeah.
long ago did you
Have
guys move?
you did you participate in maybe some masters competitions at the old Apex, maybe?
Did you guys
Or do you
host
remember?
that? What was the winter one? Didn't you guys host a cold weather one, or not a winter one? What was the Masters comp called?
Spring Fever, they've done a couple of times. Spring
I've
Fever
attended
Masters
Spring
one.
Fever. I did not compete in Spring Fever because I wasn't Masters yet. Because now I'm 42, so it really doesn't matter anymore. I just gave up. You know,
There you
I'll
go.
compete. I actually made a post the other day. I'm like, I haven't competed in probably over a year. I'm like, I need to compete now. Like as soon as this stuff gets unlocked, I'm in it. Let's do this.
Yeah,
I'll jump on anyone.
I just leveled up. I turned 40 in February, so I was anxiously awaiting all the summer comps for this year that now look like they won't happen to be
Well,
on
and to
the
be
side
fair,
of 40.
CrossFit changed the regulations, what, 2 years ago? And now it's 35 plus as Masters?
Yeah, there's some younger groups, correct.
Yeah. So I was taking advantage of that. I'm like, oh, well, all right, well, I'll be at Masters, sure. Wait, so obviously shout out to your site because you guys, I've always been a great influencer in the sport. But you had messaged me about the Cannondale Trail 5.
Yeah.
So I'm sharing that now. And then also the Specialized Rock Hopper.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, and the expert edition, which is what I have up here. So, admittedly, you had asked about, obviously, the reason why you picked up these two is because these were the only ones locally near you.
Yeah, we have a great local shop, and those were the two new ones they had. So, I mean, we could talk about new versus used, but these were the two models that they had that were kind of price range and available.
Okay. So, right off the bat, obviously the Specialized that I'm looking at right now, it looks like they're running what's called a 1-by setup, which is very common nowadays. What that means is, when I say that, is that you have a single, well, actually, no, you have a 2-by. Never mind. I'm looking at it right here. So and there's nothing wrong with 2-by, but back in the day, mountain bikes or road bikes, everything was a 3-by, meaning you had three chain rings in the front, and then obviously your assortment of gears in the back. And then as technology has advanced over the years, everything high end now is pretty much 1-by. You have one single chain ring in the front, so you don't need this derailleur device here to help move the chain back and forth over the gears in the front, because everything is happening in the back. That's where a lot of the modern bikes are. But admittedly, I have nothing against the 2-by, because basically the advantage of the 2-by is if you drop down to the small chain ring in the front, I call that granny gear. So if you're doing a grandma climb, you want to have that granny gear because it makes everything really easier. Anyway, so this is a 2-by, and it looks like, okay, so your Cannondale is also a 2-by. So, and it looks like both bikes here, you're looking at hardtails, which is what you've been used to riding anyway, right? You've never ridden a full suspension, correct?
Correct. My Cannondale now is a front suspension, so.
Okay, yeah. So here's the best part. When I started mountain biking, and I started at a Penn State, Lehigh Valley, Allentown campus back in the day, and they actually had phys ed courses on skiing and biking. So that's how I got to learn all the trails around here. I'm like, what? I got to take a phys ed credit, gen ed obviously, but what? Yeah, so I got to learn on the mountain bike I bought back then. This is 1996. Was a full rigid bike, not even a front shock, and I didn't stop riding that thing until 2007. When I bought my first full suspension bike. So, and again, there's nothing against hardtails. Let me pause now.
Yeah.
Every mountain bike nowadays, standard has pretty much a front shock. It's a no-brainer. The advantage of going to full suspension is you are going to gain some nice squish in the back, so to speak. But I will tell you, I can't beat a beautiful hardtail for climbing, because when you pedal up hills, that rear suspension is going to lag a little bit, and you're going to lose some of that power displacement on the pedal stroke. So it's funny because I have a brand new bike, which I think is what you commented on. I was building up a new bike in the garage.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's a hardtail bike.
It's for climbing, or it's a hill bike?
Oh, it's a $9,000 bike, but I only paid $2,500 for it because it's from 2016. So my buddy's been sitting on it in his inventory in Colorado for years, and he put it on eBay for a buy it now $2,500. And right before the pandemic unleashed, I looked at it and he showed it to me at dinner. He flew, because he's from here. So he flew out here. He sees his dad every few months. And he's like, oh, by the way, if you know anybody looking for a high-end hardtail, check this out. Like the entire frame is carbon fiber. Like everything he put on that bike was top of the line. So I was like, wait a minute, I could score a $9,000 bike for $2,500. I don't care what year it is. Sold. I said, take that crap off of eBay and ship it to me. So yeah. So that's the new rig. I don't care if it's 2020 or 2019. I care about the technology involved. So, but I'm different. You know, you're a guy, you have a great local shop, you're trying to support local businesses. And yes, the biking industry is actually doing really well right now because biking is considered an essential business.
Yeah, but I mean, it begs the question, reaching out and talking to some people, the shop was like, well, we have these 2 available. We're getting calls every day for new bikes, and just looking on the marketplace and looking around, people are selling bikes all over the place. They want to get outside, right?
Exactly. So the cool thing is both rigs you're looking at, as I'm zooming in here on the Cannondale site, looks like so the Cannondale is definitely a lower end model compared to that Santa Cruz, but they both are set up with disc brakes. So that's awesome. Without actually digging into the componentry. Like nowadays, disc brakes have pretty much become standard. Like back in the day, the bike you probably have now probably has rim brakes, right?
It does,
It grabs the rim, yeah. Which is still being sold. A lot of entry-level bikes come with that nowadays. So the cool thing is you're at least going to get, there's your brake rotor. There's your disc brake right there. Now, the only difference between disc brakes versus the caliper brakes is just like a car, the braking is much more high performance. It can handle a lot more stress if you really want to get after it. But also, there's also 2 different levels of disc brakes as well. The calipers will be activated by a cable, just like your shifting mechanisms, right? Is all cable fed.
Yeah.
Or the higher end brake systems are hydraulic, just like a modern car. Like all modern vehicles, cars, trucks, etc., their disc brakes are hydraulically fed. Well, guess what? That also exists in the biking world too. So without me reading all the specs right away, I can already tell you that if these bikes are retailing for $1,000 or less, unless the costs have really come down, they're probably going to be cable fed. And it's not a bad thing. It's just that if you're a high-end cyclist, you care about hydraulic versus cable. That's not.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm there yet.
Yeah.
For hydraulic.
Well, actually, your Trail 5 from Cannondale, hydraulic disc brakes.
Hydraulic disc brakes.
Okay. So then the Specialized, I wonder what this says. Hold on. Exit out of my Zoom. I zoomed in there. All right. See, this is what I love about Specialized. They put all the stats right here too.
Got it all for you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you actually looked at any of this stuff. Yes, this is how I geek out. I should have warned you. Yeah, you got standard full length fork, front shock, head tube angles, a standard cross country setup. Blah 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 blah. Yada yada yada. I'm trying to find brake details. Maybe they got it up here. Here we go. Wheels, tires, drivetrain. There we go. Brakes. Oh yeah, those are hydraulic too. Wow, man, they've really improved access point. Back in the day, you couldn't score hydraulic brakes on a mountain bike for under $1,000.
Huh.
So this is exciting to see. Yeah. So these are both, as far as hydraulics and everything else, very similar. Both hardtails, both standard, pretty standard. Hold on, what's the component package? Here we go. I should have warned people. Actually, I did tag this on the Facebook post that we may be geeking out about bikes. Okay, Shimano DR 9-speed is on the Specialized. And you got Shimano Acera, also 9-speed. So these are all like entry to mid-level components. So the high end in the Shimano world is called XTR. Like that new bike I'm building out is all top end XTR. So, but here's the funny thing. So here's a little hack. A lot of people don't realize this. So this year's XTR becomes next year's like next step down. So when they develop new tech, that becomes the XTR of this year. Yeah. And then last year's XTR just becomes the next step down.
And when does that happen? When's the turnover date? When do they start releasing the new stuff to the old stuff?
It's just like car release. Like when the new bikes come out, like if they tell you that's a 2019 or a 2020, they got to tell you that. Like, so the bikes you're looking at right now, actually, to be fair, unless they're letting go of last year's stock, everybody should have 2020 bikes. So, but here's the best part. So like whatever, like, so for example, the Cannondale was, what did I say it was? Oh, Shimano. I know I'm not screen sharing anymore here, but bottom bracket, sealed cartridge, yada, yada, yada. So my point is though, is like whatever is this year was last year's high end, that or not full high end, but it keeps stepping down.
Sure.
And I never realized that until my buddies all with shops taught me all that. So hands down, you're looking at two well-rounded. Again, you're not a hardcore heavy-duty cyclist, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, you know where I'm going and what I'm trying to do. It's not racing value or anything where I'm.
What I tell people, and I literally had this conversation before this show with my friend and my wife. She's trying to get a new mountain bike, and she's willing to buy used. And she wants her boyfriend to also get into mountain biking with her too. He's a resident. He's in his residency at the hospital as a doctor. She's a high-end ER nurse, and we got her into mountain biking, and now she wants a bike, but now she wants him to get a bike. And he's like, I'm not going to spend $1,000 on a bike. Like, well, number one, you're a resident. You got a lot of medical bills coming. I get that. You don't know if you love the sport yet. If he was already riding a bike, that'd be something different. You've already been riding a bike. So what I try and tell people is this, and I don't own a shop. I'm not getting paid for this, but I said, listen, the components is what matters. Buying a $500 bike versus a $1,000 bike, you're definitely going to get a better quality of drivetrain and component package on the bike. You can have literally the exact same bike frame, and the difference is from $500 to $1,000, you're going to go from cable-fed brakes to hydraulics, and I guarantee the drivetrain componentry is going to be beefed up as well. So you'll probably have a much nicer shifting. So if you plan on biking more in the year to 2 to 3 years to come with your son or others, then stimulate the economy. I'd probably go with the Specialized over the Cannondale.
Okay.
And here's the best part. I said when I messaged you earlier, my current full suspension bike is a Cannondale, and my new hardtail is Calvin, my coonhound, saying hi. My new bike is a Specialized. So it's kind of funny. You and I are talking about two brands that I already own.
You have experience with. Great.
Specialized here's the thing. So that Specialized is called what? A rock hopper. So their most famous bike for years is called the Stump Jumper. Specialized, their Stump Jumper has stood the test of time. It is the old faithful, that is the go-to bike. If you're looking at the Specialized lineup, the Stump Jumper it's the shit, man. But it's also full suspension. So you are going to pay to jump from hardtail to full suspension.
Yep.
And what are most of the trails around you? Are they all like rails to trail? That's the other page. We should have started there for the listeners. What is your riding style? What are the parks around you? Are you going down to Wissahickon a lot?
Yeah, I mean, the extent of where I've been lately is basically Lake Nakamixon, but certainly I'm familiar with some hiking and biking trails in Ralph Stover out that way, up in Green Lane.
I know Green
Tons
Lane.
of stuff on and off the Perk Trail right there. So.
And have you had any problems with the current bike you have now? What are your current, this is the great part. I'm not even a bike sales consultant, but I'm having fun right now. So what are your current complaints? Everybody's got pros and cons of what they currently have and what they currently do.
I told you I got this bike similar to you in 1996. I was 16 years old. But I think the frame is actually a little too small for me. It's a small size Cannondale frame.
Wait, what's your height?
Well, I'm like 5'8" now, 5'9".
Yeah. Your bike's way too small for you. So ergonometry, just like setting up a good computer desk, same thing on your bike. You're not going to reach proper leg extension. I taught spinning for 6 years. The biggest thing I found for people is they were never raising their seat high enough to get proper leg extension.
Yeah.
So from an efficiency standpoint, you're inefficient, but also from a knee tissue strain point, you could create knee problems from not allowing your leg to reach that almost, I'm not saying locked out, but almost full extension. Concept, we talked about Concept 2 rowers earlier. Concept came out with a bike, a stationary bike.
A stationary bike. Yeah, we've ridden it. Yeah.
So Rob at F13 bought 2 of those. And as soon as those came in, I planned it. I walked in, and I just stood there. And I waited for somebody to get on that bike. That was one of the coaches.
Seat too low and
everything was set up wrong. And I'm watching her just all stretched out, trying to bike on it. And I'm walking up, I'm like, hey, you having fun? She's like, yeah, I'm like, doesn't feel so comfortable, does it? She's like, no. I was like, would you mind if I just ran you through a quick fit session and changed everything that she was doing? And she's just like, oh my God, it's so much better. I
Yeah.
was like, well, so think about that. Like, people don't think about proper fit. And
Well,
yes, if
so
you're
I think that's
5'8",
the biggest thing. There's actually a functional problem with the bike in that it's too small for me.
you
And I've
outgrow
been
it.
compensating with jacking the seat up real high, which is fine for riding around here and there. But when I'm
Yeah.
actually on the trails, it's certainly not doing what it's supposed to do. So.
You know, as a fitness professional, that form, again, we said it very early in the show, form and technique, right?
Yeah.
So you can only push your technique so far within that form of the equipment you're using. So that'd be like, for example, if you were teaching Ollie and the only thing you guys owned for the men athletes was a women's bar, right? The diameter of the bar is not fitting the average man's hand.
Yeah.
The width for shoulder width is not reaching the proper width. Like, I love it when I went to competitions and they actually had women's bars, because there is a difference of fit. And whereas, like, when my wife started CrossFit before I knew her, they only owned men's bars. She never got to train with a women's bar. And a lot of female athletes said, oh, no, I've always trained with a men's bar. I'm fine. I'm like, this isn't about taking an easy card.
Yeah. It's the wrong
Right?
equipment.
These are engineered and designed for a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people don't think about these things. So,
Yeah, so I mean, that would be my number one complaint, size. I mean, other than that, I mean, it's been a great bike for me and has stood the test of time. I'm still riding it around with minimal, I take care of it, but minimal maintenance. So,
well, so I mean, yeah, biking doesn't have to be rocket science. You know, clean the chain, and honestly, it's just like your car, right? You change the oil in your car, you change the air filters, make sure the car can breathe, make sure the parts are lubed. Same thing with the biking world. Biking does not have to be rocket science. I mean, unless you're really getting into a lot of like mud bogging and like crazy stuff like I do, then great. I'm going to spend a little more time maintaining my bikes. But the average basic trail rider, rails to trail path, gravel paths, gravel riding, etc., you're not getting that bike super dirty.
and what we're talking about is fine for front suspension. I don't need full suspension for that stuff. And
if you're going to get more aggressive in your riding, like that's why, like, right now, everything I've seen, everything I've observed from you, feel free sticking with that hardtail, $1,000 or less access point. Again, we talked about that. I'm obviously leaning towards Specialized right now. I think with just comparing those two models, because those are available near you, I think the components package is nicer. I really appreciate what Specialized has done with their frame designs and what they're giving you for the price. I think it's a little bit nicer than the 5. So
love it.
Yeah.
That's
and again, some people may agree with me or disagree with me. That's just my personal opinion.
I appreciate the opinion, taking the time to talk about it. How about, hey, so I'm talking about Lake Nakamixon. Where can I go close to me inside of 20 or 30 miles that are going to give me a good wide variety of trails, something that I'm going to be able to handle, not too aggressive?
Besides Knox, or are you saying riding Knox?
Besides that, give me some recommendations on where to go. Where do you like?
Well, obviously, if you ever want to come down in town, we got plenty of stuff up here too. Have you never ridden Wissahickon down in Philadelphia?
I've not been on that trail.
You should. Well, Wissahickon, I mean, it extends from, like, literally, you're kind of like in Philly, but you're not, because you're along the river and you're by Manayunk, and they have amazing trails there, like some aggressive stuff too. Like,
I did the Wissahickon Trail run 2 years ago, which was a 10-mile run on that. So I had been on that trail, but I've never ridden down there.
Oh,
and that was like Forbidden Drive or something, and then you turn off up and go up down in there or something.
So, and the other thing is, I haven't ridden there in years. I think it's northeast of Wissahickon. God, it's not called Tower Road, but there's a fire tower in the land, and they have an entire network of mountain biking trails in there too. And that would be the other nearby. I can't think of Eastern PA. The other thing, I might not be able to figure this out right now, but I'm going to track it down now tonight because it's really bothering me. So I had 3 or 3 years ago. The reason why I remember is because they had a wildfire, and French Creek. Boom.
French Creek, yeah.
Have you ridden French Creek?
No, but I know that area well. I have not.
They have a nice network of trails there as well. So that's probably closer to you than obviously Allentown. Right. And French Creek is big, it's beautiful, and there's a lot of options there. And again, great for trail running, hiking, and obviously mountain biking as well. And I think they're considered under, they might be DCNR property as well. I don't know. I know I know Nakamitsu is definitely DCNR, which is the
Yeah.
land preservation organization for the state. But for you, you should totally check out, and they have an app called All Trails.
Yep, I got that on my phone. Yep.
Yeah. So there's plenty of stuff there. If you're ever game for a road trip and you wanted to do a socially distanced ride, I take care of Jordan Creek Single Track, which is right down the road from my house, right here in Allentown. I joke around because I tell people it's like an urban park because you're so close to the city of Allentown, but you're not. And you got about 8 to 9 miles easily of interlocking loop options and trails. And it's like a little gem that we have here.
Oh, well, I'll definitely take you up on that when I get my new bike, get riding a little bit.
Heck yeah, dude. Yeah. And I go over, I can't tell you how many people I've brought back to the garage and we go over DIY bike life. Obviously, I want people to work with their local shops and support local businesses and make sure they're taking care of their equipment. But there's a lot of basic stuff that every homeowner, bike owner should be able to do on their own. It's like, you guys probably do a lot of your own equipment maintenance at the facility too, right?
Yeah.
Unless something breaks, then we'll worry about that later. So,
great. Well, hey,
listen, we're coming to the end of our hour. So, is there anything else I need to address for you in the meantime?
No, I'm good. I appreciate you taking the time to look up those 2 bikes, give me some component details. And
should we give a shout out to the bike shop you're looking at?
Yeah, I live here in Souderton, Pennsylvania, so Scooters Bike Shop. If you've been
Scooters. I know Scooters.
There you go.
It's been 2 years since I've been there, but yeah, that's a great little spot.
Down in the hollow of Souderton right there where I live, a mile or 2 away, and we bought our son's bike there, and we go in there for service and stuff.
Yeah, so dude, Scooters been there for a while too, man. They've been around a while. Yeah. I love supporting local bike shops. That's why I tell people all the time, like, yes, granted, my new bike came from a leftover stock out of Colorado because I helped him open that shop. I helped him lay the sheetrock. So he and I go way back. But normally I actually rotate my business through all the local shops here around the greater Lehigh Valley because I know all the owners. So it's just like CrossFit, right? Like I drop into my friends' gyms.
Yeah, you got to go see everybody.
Actually, back in the day, I used to call myself the CrossFit whore because I would just drop in all over the place. When I'm traveling on business, I just drop in.
I love that aspect of it, just circling back a little bit on the CrossFit, but going and stepping inside another box and seeing how they do things and making those acquaintances. The community part of it is
especially when I was coaching more. From the trainer aspect, I wanted to observe how other people's styles were. Yeah. And it's funny because that comes from biking too. Like every time I leveled up my cycling world, is because I hopped on the back wheel of somebody else who was a little bit better than me, and I would observe their mechanics and how they did things differently, and either it clicked with me or it didn't click with me, right? So I think that's a great, from my end, that's a great thing, whether it's cycling or CrossFit or other forms of fitness, is don't ever close yourself out from learning something new and seeing how maybe something can be done better or differently than what you've already learned.
Yeah, well, I love that, man. So I'm the kind of person that likes to try new things, but I'm not the most adventurous. So I'm always a person that would rather have a conversation like this and talk about, hey, I'm thinking about doing some mountain biking. Let's talk about it with someone who is a subject matter expert or someone who at least is well-respected and knows what they're talking about. So I appreciate you taking the time to go through it with me. It's been been fun talking to you.
Well, I haven't seen you in years. I mean, I can't remember a lot. I think I probably last time I saw you, you were probably running or judging a comp. Or I might have been one of the judges at that comp too, because I've judged a lot of comps over the years too. So
we've certainly crossed paths a few times. So hopefully we'll get back to competing here sometime soon, right? Where people can come back together and spend some time. And
my wife and I are both like, we need an excuse to train harder. Like maybe we just launch a virtual comp. I don't know. Maybe that's the next chapter. Maybe you guys got to launch a virtual comp. I don't know.
Well, I could certainly see that happen, and we're actually thinking about that from a swimming standpoint, because as a swimming coach, we're trying to figure out how to compete without everybody together. So that time aspect of that sport is certainly lends itself to you could run a race here and they could run a race there and bring stuff together. But the virtual CrossFit competition is a good idea.
I think it's totally possible. I think we could pull off a virtual CrossFit comp before a virtual swim meet, because obviously you need pools or water,
the space there
to help with that. I mean, if you did a body weight comp related things with people who don't have the equipment, you could pull a lot of stuff off. So
certainly can. We'll look for that.
Listen, I've had a blast today. We do have to bring the show to a close, but I always ask my guest co-host, since you're new to the podcasting space, to kind of like close things out. And since you're an influencer from other sports and obviously from the educational perspective, this is one of those opportunities where, like, you know what, everything else we discussed tonight is great. But like, if there was an all-encompassing message or a legacy message you want to leave behind that embodies everything that you do, right? Like, if people want to really understand why Lou cares so much about health and fitness or something like that, what would you like to leave behind for the audience?
Man, that's a deep question to end it on,
Right?
without any precursors. But, I appreciate you referring to me as kind of a leader in the CrossFit space and as a coach. And kind of my thing is working hard here, controlling what we can control. I've heard tons of people talking about it, especially important right now in the times that we're going through. I know this may not air till later, but in the space that we're kind of living in, to just be a hard worker, be industrious, keep moving forward, keep getting stuff done, keep working hard.
I love that. Yeah. I think I just aired a podcast about that like last week. So thank you for reiterating my point. Like I grew up on a farm. So like one thing I learned from my father was work hard. Okay. The biggest words I loved from you just now was the control what you can control. It is so easy to get distracted by everything else going on right now. Right? Why are we
we've been
talking
with our athletes about that. The first thing is effort, right? Put some effort into whatever you're doing, whether it's your daily routine or your bikes or whatever you're allowed or can do right now. Put your effort and your work ethic into that.
Yeah. I remind people that, guys, like if anything, you have less distraction now. Like if you just unplug from all the BS out there and just focus on you and your family and what matters, your own personal health, your own personal fitness, your own personal nutrition, and not be like, oh, well, I need to develop a new COVID dessert. Like, no, you don't. Go hit the gym, man. Like go do some burpees in the backyard. All right. Go run down the street a couple of times with your mask on. I don't care, but like own you, right? Own you and your family. Like that's one thing you can control. So
well, we're working hard over here. It looks like you are from all the stuff you got on. So I appreciate you having me on.
Trying to, my friend. Well, listen, hang tight. We can probably goodbye off the air.
Yeah, right on.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Lou from CrossFit Apex. He might know a little bit about swimming. He might know a little bit about the CrossFit functional fitness world. And we got to geek out about some biking tonight, which I'm always happy to do as well. So again, ladies and gentlemen, check out CrossFitApex.com. I'm excited when I can actually announce that here in Pennsylvania, anyway, Eastern Pennsylvania, I'm excited when all of my friends and entrepreneurs and fellow passionate health and fitness coaches can return to possibly their normal way of helping other people get also just as healthy and just as fit and get life back to a normal balanced state. So again, thanks for tuning in. And remember, we are here to help fuel your health, your business, and your lifestyle. Lou definitely helped us do that today. Check him out. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, you too can live the fuel. We'll talk to you guys again soon.